We are so happy to sit down today with one of the skating world's power couples, Elvis Stojko and Gladys Orozco-Stojko.
Gladys is the former Mexican ladies champion, representing Mexico for more than a decade on the international circuit. Her career highlights include a top 20 finish at 4 continents and participating in the 2002 World Championships. Professionally, she has traveled the world as a principal soloist with Disney on Ice and now works as casting director for ISF Productions.
Welcome. Also, part 2 of this dynamic duo, we have Elvis Stojko, the one and only. Elvis is a 3-time world champion, 2-time Olympic silver medalist, and 7-time national champion. Wow, you beat us, all 4 of us, out on all of your accomplishments, Elvis, combined. You're best known for your massive jumps and your big show personality, performing on ice with many productions known as Stars on Ice and Rock the Rink, just to name a couple. So, welcome.
And we're so excited to welcome you, Elvis and Gladys, to kick off our Afterlife series. So we'll give you a little hand.
So just to start off, we're talking afterlife. What is skating like, or what is life like after competitive skating? So can you guys give us a little rundown of what life post-competition looks like for you? Do you stick with your schedules? Do you have things that are completely unrelated to skating going on? What does it look like for you? Elvis, I know you kind of have a Beyond the Ice series thing going on. Can you talk a little bit about that to start, and then Gladys afterwards?
Yeah, well, I've been out of competition for many years. You ladies were really little when I stopped skating. I've been around for a while, but 2002 is my last Olympics. I did touring for many years. That sort of is kind of what's expected of us, competing at the Worlds, going to Champions on Ice, Stars on Ice, all that stuff. I lived in Mexico for many years, and there was a time there where I actually didn't skate. I thought I wasn't coming back to skating back in 2006 before I met this lovely lady over here. There's car racing, there's acting, there's all this other stuff. Once we got married, then some of the stuff stayed the same, but I settled down a little bit more. We came back to Canada, and just wanting to do other things that we've always wanted to do since we were kids, other than skating, because, you're not just focused on skating, you have dreams of doing other things. And through skating, we're able to do that because monetarily we have a job with skating, Gladys doing production, still doing shows, doing seminars with me. So there's a combination of a few different things. So there's a lot of different avenues that we can explore through skating, which is great. So it's not just stuck, you only have shows, you only do Stars on Ice. There's many other avenues. So there's many different things that we're doing.
Awesome. Gladys, you're up. Okay, let's talk about production and modeling and all that other girly fun stuff.
It wasn't always like that. My relationship with skating, like many other skaters, I can assure through the conversations that I had, it wasn't planned. It wasn't something that I dream about. It wasn't like I was competing and I always knew, like other kids, one day I'm going to be show skater, or one day I'm going to tour the world skating. Like, I didn't even knew that existed because honestly, there's not a lot of shows that come to Mexico. So at that moment, I saw it on TV and that was it. It wasn't tangible. I didn't knew anybody in my close group of friends that had done it. So if you don't see it, then it becomes impossible. It's not like Elvis is saying in Canada, it's kind of expected of you to finish competing and then go on to tours because that's what people do. So it becomes a norm. For me, thinking about show skating, it didn't exist. And the moment it presented itself, even my parents and my friends were like, you're going to quit everything. You're going to quit school, quit skating, quit competing, and pack 2 bags and go and travel around the world. Like, how does that work? And I didn't know how it worked, and nobody else knew how it worked. And I couldn't ask questions because it was a completely new situation in my life, and it was an adventure. So it's not always like Elvis says, your dreams when you're a child, this became a dream as an adult, if it makes sense. It became my afterlife completely. There was no thought process on it. It just presented itself, it happened, and then I'm still here. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
And I feel like that's so pertinent right now because of the way last season ended, and there's going to be so many athletes who are just kind of falling out of competition. It's not the finale they wanted or expected or dreamed of or planned for, and it's like you said, like you plan and then life happens, and it's you take what's put in front of you and you make lemonade with lemons.
Well, Elvis always said there was a moment where he didn't know if he was gonna come back to skating. Like he finished his competition time, and then
there was a few
left it as a pause.
there was a few years there due to life, family things, other stuff. I had to make a choice. It was a really, really difficult time. I wasn't in depression, but I was depressed. A lot of athletes go through post-Olympic depression. Mark Tewksbury, I chatted with him. He came and did a talk for the national team back in '93, and he talked about he won Olympics, and then he went away for a year and lived in Australia to get an idea of who he was away from swimming, because it was a huge thing for him. And you know, when you live, even eat, skate, and it's the only thing. And I talk about this a lot. If it's the only thing in your life, it becomes very incestuous because it only feeds itself. So you need other things to the soul, because as it's an art, you need life to feed art, because that's what gives us the creativity. As you experience things, then you need to reflect on it and then present it in your own way and express yourself. So through that, I needed something else. I knew I had other things in my life that was causing distress. So I moved on. I left skating, and then I got pulled back into it, and then realizing through skating that what I love about it is the performance and doing it under pressure, and that's what I love about acting. And with acting, I'm allowed to connect with different emotions that you don't always get a chance to connect with in competition, as you girls know, because in competition, you have kind of a parameter that you got to stay in to get the technical stuff done. Because if you allow the emotion to take over, your skills are out the window. So with performance, you know, in show skating, you can attack a little bit more, but it's a job, so you can't really let go as much. Where in acting, as a human, I can attach and connect to each one of those emotions and express them, and connect on a human level and be creative that way. And that's what I love about the acting part. And then with the racing is just strictly technical. It's adrenaline rush. I love working with my hands, technically working on engines, things like that. So as a guy, I have that balance. And for me, I need the balance of the art on one end and then the full technical aspect on the other. And that's kind of how I balance my life, with skating mixed into it all.
Right. So within that change, Gladys, you moving on to, performing in shows professionally, and Elvis, you discovering a new output, a new avenue within acting. Can you kind of pinpoint a paradigm shift from I'm feeling lost, I'm feeling like I don't know my path, to this is what I'm meant to do? Like, is there a specific point in your life where you can pinpoint a bit of a paradigm shift there?
Well, for me, when I finished skating, it was more like skating picked the timing to finish with me instead of me finish with skating. And I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If it was my decision, I would have continued competing. But because maybe I ran out of money, maybe, I was tired of chasing it, because in Mexico, at that moment, we didn't have big ice rinks. We didn't have amazing facilities. We didn't have, it's mostly public skating. So to find like just time to skate is very difficult. And this is what I mean with chasing it, because it wasn't as easy as it could have been maybe in a different country, or maybe now. Also, I was a rebel, and I don't know, it was before I met him, I swear, but we were both kind of the rebels of our federation, meaning it's not that we did something wrong, is that we did it our way. And I always skated to the type of music that I wanted. And I always had a more masculine way of skating because I was very powerful and I was a technical person and I love jumps and I love splits and anything big and powerful. I wasn't a pretty ballerina. And I was very outspoken. So if there was something just inconformities, even with like maybe not so much the judging part, but it was a very big process to go to an international, and we didn't have financial support, and we had to turn the world upside down to be able to go to an international back then. So like just the constant fighting, it kind of made me tired of competing, but I love skating. So it was a matter of like, I don't want to give up 20 years of my life because this is all I've done since I was 4 years old. Like, I didn't even go, well, I did go to university, but I didn't really want it to work. I'm a chemist. Like, I didn't want it to go in a lab and, have that as my life. I wanted to keep skating. So when show skating presented itself, it was a no-brainer. It was like, because it's a way that I can keep doing what I want without having to have a heartbreak, without having to go to the rink and have that heavy feeling on you and be like, do I really want to be here? Like, just, it's very intense because it's a feeling of like, I hate this, but I love this. And it tears you apart. Yeah. And then like Elvis said, a venue of acting for him was a way of releasing, because he was able to release, the performance part of him that he couldn't do skating. I realized that through skating, through show skating, but also modeling, which is the same. It's a performance. Modeling, acting, and dancing, and everything that has the movement. I love the part of being in front of a crowd. That part is amazing. So being in front of a camera is the same. Being on a runway with people like, judging what you're wearing, not you, but what you're wearing, which is the same thing as when you're skating. It's, what you're doing. It was a very easy transition to gravitate on modeling or gravitate on acting instead of picking a completely different sport or going back into chemistry, because I probably don't remember half of what I learned.
Absolutely. Yep.
For me, I guess there was, the paradigm shift. It was acting for me started in grade school, actually. There was a small school from grade 5 to 8. The teachers there, it was a husband and wife team. There was only like 33 kids in the school from grade 1 to 8. It was very Little House on the Prairie style. So it was great for me. It was a private school, but it allowed me to skate and train, and I had flexible hours. But from grade 5 to 8, he was very creative. The husband, he put together plays with all of the kids. So all the like the kindergarten, grade 1s, all the way to grade 8s, all were in the same play. We sang on stage. He wrote the music and the whole thing, and it was comedy. There was a whole bunch of stuff involved. So for me, I started doing stage stuff at 10 years old, and I enjoyed that. My dad was a singer. My mom danced, folk dancing. So I had that background a little bit, and I loved being on stage. Now, skating, as we have emotion and life and ups and downs, we're trained to kind of compress them a little bit, because you gotta put them aside to train, you gotta put them aside to compete. So you never really get a chance to fully sometimes feel all of that unless the emotion really pushes out. So acting allowed me to do that. Then later on in life, back like 99, 2000, I started getting like small parts in different films, either hockey or doing background work. I did the movie Death to Smoochie was my first sort of big one I did in the background with
Becky did that.
Probably really little.
Little rhino costume.
It was a fun time. I got to work with Robin Williams. Danny DeVito wanted me to create the whole choreography for the end sequence, and I had to double for Robin and work with these people. It was an amazing time, and I loved the whole process. So I got to work behind the scenes on a really big project and loved that. And throughout my career, I had moments where I was going, and there was a moment there where I remember it was my last year. It was going into the Olympics in 2002. It was the summer of 2001, and I kind of stepped away during lunch break, and I was at that moment where I was, it was my last year. I knew it, and needed some time away. We had a break, and Robin saw me way on the other end of the rink, and he used to come and watch me practice. He would come out and he would just sit and watch me practice because they gave me ice time to practice because we had a few weeks of that, and I couldn't take off ice time, so they gave me time to practice. And he saw me taking a break, and he came all the way around the rink. He found me, he sat with me, and I had a conversation with Robin for like 45 minutes about skating and life and acting and all this stuff. I told him that was my dream, one day to do acting. And because I grew up with Star Wars, and I loved Star Wars, and said I'd love to be in a Star Wars film or something. The end of the production, Robin bought everyone presents. It was like birthday for everyone, crew, you name it, everyone got presents. And he bought me like $500 worth of Star Wars paraphernalia. And it was like, oh my God, it just showed me what an amazing guy he was in this business, that you could, because there is so many people talking bad about the business and how there's so many bad people in it and just attitudes and things like that. But to have the opportunity to meet and work with someone like that inspired me. And again, it was a time where, I was doing that transition. That was a moment. And then the big moment was when I played Billy Flynn in the show Chicago. And I was in New York back in 2014. And it was one of those things where you have it in your head and it kind of creeps along. And do you have the courage to go for it? You know what I mean? To kind of take your foot off the dock and fully commit to the ship leaving the harbor. And I use that analogy a lot. And I guess it was that moment. It was during a show in New York, and it just hit me where I wasn't nervous, I wasn't afraid, and I just completely let go and really embraced it. And that was a moment where I was like, yeah, I got to do this. I got to fully do this. And there was that moment, but it's sort of you creep up to it. It's not like, okay, I'm just going to do it. You take a chunk at it as you get a little closer, then you fully commit to it. You take your foot off the dock, and then you go for it. And you just have to build up the confidence and I guess the courage to do it. And there's a couple of moments there that transition.
We briefly touched on mental health a little bit earlier. We want to get a taste of how your mental health was affected after this shift between competitive life to the rest of your life, and maybe some coping strategies to go along with the struggles you faced.
Yeah, I had a pretty turbulent time. The last couple years, right? It actually started after Olympics. Well, just before Olympics in '98, believe it or not. That's what threw off my timing. There's three things that I've learned to balance myself, and there's the physical aspect, there's the mental aspect, and then there's the spiritual aspect. And what really saved me was the Kung Fu, because in my life, Kung Fu connects all three aspects like nothing else. So you have the warrior physical aspect, there's the breathing, there's the mental side with it, and there's a spiritual connection to it as well. So it was a very balanced thing for me. And when I was going through a really tough time, there was family, there was people pulling me left, right, and center as a world champion going into the Olympics, people expecting you to win. There's a lot of, the word pressure doesn't even remotely cover to begin what it felt like. It was insane. I watched Brian Orser go through it, which was unbelievable. As they basically said to him back in '88, if he didn't win, the Olympics was a failure. That's everything was on his shoulder. It was crazy. It was like Liz Manley won the silver, but Brian lost the gold, and it was horrible. And I remember going through up to '98, and it was massive, and I got pulled around. I lost my timing, and I coped through the year, and that's how I ended up getting injured. And I was sort of limping along for 4 years, going through all of that, until finally it came to a head, and for like 6-7 years, I went through a very difficult time. There was family issues. There was all these other things that I had to figure out because I basically suppressed all this emotion and because I didn't have time to deal with it because I had a job to do. So, and then trying to be creative, all these other things, the body then went, okay, you're not dealing with this. This is a spiritual thing. So then it came out physically. So there was this other depression. There was all these things happening all at once. And I had to figure it out. And moving to Mexico allowed me the time to kind of figure out who I was. I had to break everything down, take the time to remove each layer and figure out what the core issue was. And basically it was my self-worth was attached to the outcome. And without me knowing it, over the years, it was in my psyche, and I didn't realize it until I actually spent the time to sort of layer by layer figure it out. Eventually got through it, found the real self-worth, the self-love, all these things, and as it happened, got everything cleared up stage by stage, and that's when I met Gladys. That's when life kind of started taking a better direction. But I had to systematically do it, and for me, I self-learn. I'll go out and ask a lot of questions, and I'll figure it out on my own. And it took me a while, but I was able to figure it out. There's breathing techniques. There's meditation that I discovered, stuff that I figured out on my own, and eventually got myself out of the hole, so to speak, and back into a healthy lifestyle. And it all starts from the spiritual side, because that's where everything starts. That's your higher self, why you're here. Once I figured that out, what was my emotional channel, because in the emotion and mental part come in, and then the physical fixes itself. You don't have to go reverse and try the physical part. Like, I do eat healthy and I work out and all that stuff to keep it going. But if you know the direction you're going spiritually, and you can feel that, it's going to tap into the emotion. You have the right emotion because it's positive, and then from there it taps in physically. And once I figured out that flow and that circle, then everything kind of fixed itself. But I had to kind of figure it all out. Kind of like Lego set.
I think you touched on something really important, and this is something all athletes go through. It's a bit of an identity change. Going from, figure skater, having the title, and then to just changing to, like, for me, it was just changing to Alessia. For you, just changing to Elvis. And knowing that, well, just Alessia, just Elvis, just Gladys, just Victoria, like, that's enough. And kind of redefining yourself. And I think you did a really good job in that, keeping yourself involved in other arts, both of you. I think that's a really good coping strategy that helped help you come out of those rough periods. And I think that's something a lot of athletes can take forward in this transition for them. So thank you. And Gladys?
Also the people around you. For example, in my case, I've always been the groundbreaking. So meaning at 12 years old, I had a double axel, and I was the first one in Mexico to ever did it. And I started doing junior Grand Prixes, and I was the youngest person in Mexico to participate in the national team and do the things I was doing. And I always was the one pushing the boundaries, the first one to do this, and the first one to do that, and the first one to land this. And so then people is used to, when you don't do it, they're like, so what happened? Like, why are you not doing what you're supposed to be doing? And you're like, well, like, what if, like, leave it to somebody else? Like, I don't have to be that one. So then when you stop, or when you quit, or when you move on, there's a lot of people that were only there because you were the popular one, or because you were champion, or because you were winning the season. So they were like, yeah, Gladys. But then for some reason, your body changed, you turn 15, you grow boobs, things happen. And then all of a sudden, you're number one, you're number 3 for that season. And then people is like, well, move over, bring number 1. And then, like, that mentally, honestly, messes you up for the rest of your life because it triggers other things. But then I was lucky that my family never saw me. My dad always said, I don't want you to be a donkey full of medals. That was his. It was like, you have to have a life behind skating, because I don't want somebody full of medals that it's empty. And that was like a base for my family, because my father is very strict, but he was very good at guiding what how he wanted to raise his children. And that was the big thing. It was like, I don't care if you win or you don't win. You're still my daughter, and you're still gonna do this and this and this. Do the daughter things or the human things or the, good Samaritan things. Not just because you're a champion, you can behave however you want, or you can treat people however you want. Like, he was the one always, bringing you down from cloud nine.
Yeah.
Reality
And
check.
those are the people that you need in your life. And if you don't have them, you can be floating up there for a really long time without really realizing how the real world works.
100%. Yeah. I'm writing down that quote. That was good. Where you said, I don't want somebody with all these medals who's so empty.
I don't want a donkey full of medals. And a donkey is because I don't want somebody stupid or like, somebody that just, because donkeys are really hard workers.
Oh,
but they don't
yeah.
They're very stubborn. They're super stubborn.
And the third thing, like, Elvis went to depression when his big shit happened. I was angry. Like, obviously I'm not an angry person. Like, I'm very peaceful. But back in that moment, I was angry at everything. Like, you came and said hi, and I'll be like, blah, 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 blah. Like, I was just angry. And I didn't know how to channel it because I wasn't winning, or I wasn't training the way I wanted, or I was having friction with my parents because they were spending money and I wasn't getting the results, or whatever things, my federation, I gain weight, I lose my jumps. There's so many things. For a good chunk of my training, I was just angry because I felt like I could do more, but I wasn't achieving it. And I didn't want it just to quit and be done without closing a chapter. When show skating presented itself, I knew I wanted to be a principal. I knew I wanted to be the first one to do something. Like, the first Mexican to be a principal, the first Latin American to do whatever, like something. I just wanted to be someone special because I was craving that. Like, I spent, I don't know, I am 37. I am 37.
And you're 27, baby.
Yeah.
Never get that.
Time. All these have, I don't know, they went to prom and they graduated and they went to school and they have scholarships, and they knew they wanted to go to this college, and because their parents went to use university, and it's like tradition, and people kind of had that. Well, I had competitions, like the way people have these things in my brain is, I want to land this and I want to go to this competition. So then when I move into shows, even though my audition was amazing and I had triples and double axels and everything, they don't just put you as a principal. I started at the bottom, so it was like, you chorus.
Yeah.
Okay, here I go, a mask and a bodysuit and like wobbling around. But yet inside of me, I was like, that fire was still ignited. So I'm like, no, like, this is not it. I don't want this. Yeah, this is great, but this is not what I want. So then I pushed through, and then I did what I had to do, and I became a principal, and I toured the world with many different things. And then once I reached that level, I'm not selfish either, where it's like, I'm going to be the best forever. It's like, I reached my peak. You know what? Leave it to somebody else. Now I want to move on into production because I love how everything works behind the scenes. And then I kind of jump to the other side, and now I get to be the boss, and now I get to like overlook these girls, but now I get to help whoever is lost in the business, and they're like, I have no clue how to make an audition video, and then I haven't had any help. Nobody how to do anything. I had
You
to
taught me
learn.
how to sew fishnets.
Yes.
2016. But for a long time, I was lost. So for me, it was just the drive and the hunger of wanting to still be someone and not just to be forgotten and put in a box and be like, oh, Gladys' career is over. Bye. Now she's gonna, I don't know, become a housewife, and then like.
Right.
You're not being identified by your accomplishments or what you're doing. So it's, you know, people can look at me and they have a vision of me, you know, Elvis Stojko is a skater.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see myself once I finished skating and I went through the process, and when I looked at it, I saw myself as Elvis Stojko, but a guy that's, you know, and there's a lot of time Gladys was going through stuff and she was making big life decisions that were scary, and I would talk to her and I'd be like, babe, your skill set, your basically all your talent is not because you're a skater. Your talents allowed you to do great in skating. So those talents you can take into anything you want to do. So it's not that's who you are. So it's the core that's there that you can do anything you want. And that was all the years when I discovered that, and I realized, oh, I've got this skill set. I can plug it into anything, and realize that I really don't have to do anything if I don't want to. But you have to really recognize those things, and you have to figure it out. I always talk when I'm doing motivational speaking, and I love movies, obviously because of the connection with the acting. But there's moments in movies like in The Matrix when Neo meets the Oracle. And he walks in, and there's the saying on the top in the kitchen, and it says, "Know thyself." That's the most important thing when I'm talking to kids or, you know, parents, even your coaches. I'm like, know yourself. You got to figure out what you like, what you don't like, and don't judge yourself if you don't like something or if you like something. Just know that in your true instinct, your spiritual side, you got to know those things. Know how you learn. Know all the stuff about you. If you can understand and know who you are, then life is a whole lot easier. And you're not all the time, because you're not making decisions based on what other people think of you or what other people want for you, or what they think is the best for you. You know, so sometimes being the donkey and being stubborn can help. You know what I mean? Once you figure it out and you go that direction, don't get distracted by other people. When I left Canada and went to Mexico, I got rid of a whole bunch of sort of negative people in my life. I got rid of like 95% of the people that I knew. I disconnected from everyone, you know, and that was really hard, but I knew that, you know, you are who your friends are, you are who the people around you are, because they're getting off. Being, if you're around that, it takes that part. And like Gladys said, you know, people will, you know, elbow rub because you're successful. Then when you're not successful, you know, they're gone, and you're like, oh, what happened? You know, and that can, you know, as you're going up the hill, people be friends, and as you're coming down the hill, all these other people, they just sort of leave, and you're like, what's happening? And if you're attached to that, your self-worth is attached to that, you're in trouble. So once you realize that, and we both did in different ways in different times in our lives, and then you can find that healthy path. And it actually is so easy once you get rid of all the stuff that's unimportant. Once you remove it all and go to simplicity is the key thing. That's why even like, you know, feng shui in the house, getting rid of stuff you don't need, you wonder why, oh, it feels so good because it's not clutter. Well, the clutter in your house is the same as within your soul and within your mind. So you get things that are not needed, and the things that you know hold you back or connected to things in the past that you don't really need to connect to, then you can move forward.
From all of us here at the Edge Collective, we're so happy you're able to join us on this video today.
As you guys know, we are new to this, so there are a lot of startup costs to consider.
Please check out the link below for GoFundMe if you are willing and able to help. It'd be greatly appreciated.
And thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time.